morning and welcome to Radio Friends on Friday, April the 9th. My friend John Howe is with us. You know, he's the book author. He's written The Foolish Corner. He talks about money and how we should watch what we spend and how we think about money. Welcome.
Welcome. Great. Glad to be back.
Now, of course, The Foolish Corner is your book that we've talked about many times, but today you wanted to deal with hindsight bias.
Right.
Now, what do you mean by hindsight? I think I know what you mean, but you tell me.
No, you've probably got a pretty good idea. So hindsight bias means that when we look back at decisions we've made in the past and we know the consequences of those decisions, we assign a kind of an almost inevitability to the outcomes that actually happen. We kind of say, oh yeah, I knew that was going to happen, for example. When in fact, at the time you're making the decision, it might have been highly uncertain. But this is a very documentable phenomenon. And so we kind of look back and we give essentially, like I said, a sense of inevitability to the outcome that actually happened when in fact it wasn't really inevitable at all. So that's the broad definition of hindsight bias.
Okay. So how does this play into our daily life or our reaction with money?
Okay. Well, let me give you an example with money.
Okay.
Let's suppose that we buy a stock today, and a year from now it's doubled in price, which is an extraordinary, kind of relatively rare phenomenon, right? So when we look back and we kind of think, oh yeah, I knew that was going to happen. I'm good at this and so forth. And so this mismemory, though, of this relationship with money, it leads us perhaps to be overconfident, which is something we've talked about in the past. Because, again, we've rewritten history in our minds. And you say, oh, yeah, when I bought this stock, I was confident. I knew it was going to double in price. And when, in fact, when you bought it, that was far from a given outcome.
So you think then, since you did so well on something you did a year ago, that you now have the ability to forecast how things are going to turn out, and you may end up taking some chances that really backfire.
Absolutely.
Is that right?
Absolutely right. Because you might take on too much risk because you don't fully appreciate the risk, being overconfident in your own abilities to predict where a particular stock will go.
Right.
So that's kind of a positive outcome. When we buy the stock and it doubles. I'd like to, if you don't mind, I'd like to talk about negative outcomes because hindsight bias is equally important.
Okay.
I want to take us a little bit out of the arena of money to a case that I just saw the other day. It was a quote that I found on the BBC website, and it was the mother of a boy who tried to get to the United States from Guatemala, and died in the process. And her quote was, and this is the exact quote, "I knew I shouldn't have let him go." Well, again, this is first of all a negative outcome,
right?
But she's looking back, and I think it's fair to say that if she knew the outcome of this, she wouldn't have let him go. But she's kind of rewriting history, thinking this outcome was far more certain than in fact it was, because there was some reasonable chance he was going to get here and so forth. And so in addition to her grief, she's now being too hard on herself. She's saying, I shouldn't have let him go.
Right.
And so this is a rewriting of history that is not to her benefit at all either.
But we have all done that at one time or another. I know I have, and I would assume that most of our listeners or viewers have, where you do something and it doesn't turn out right, and you say, I knew I shouldn't have done that. Why did I do it?
That's a perfect example of hindsight.
Yeah, I've done that many times.
So, it's an altogether human tendency, absolutely. And so I guess, the next step might be when dealing with this bias, how might we kind of combat this bias or at least reduce the impact? So I do have a suggestion along those lines. And that is that, especially when we're making big decisions, in the process of making the decision, we should keep notes about what we're thinking about at that time. Because, we might be thinking, in the case of the stock, well, there's a chance it'll go up 10%, there's a chance it'll go up 50%, there's a chance it'll go down 25%. We keep these notes at the time we're making the decision, and then later on, when we know the outcome, let's say a year later, we can look back at these notes and say, oh, hold it, I thought it was certain or nearly certain it was going to double. But when I look at my notes from the time, there were a whole slew of possibilities here. And so it kind of prevents me from being, in this case, overconfident or thinking that the doubling of the stock was in fact inevitable.
Yeah. I think another thing, and this works for me, and this is with the really big decisions that you're going to have to make, think about it for a day or so. And perhaps the next day, the situation looks a little bit different than it did yesterday.
Absolutely. That's a great suggestion as well, because especially on big decisions, investments in houses or whatever, stock portfolio decisions, sometimes you just you wake up with a slightly different perspective for whatever reason. Maybe you're just more refreshed or whatever. And so I think that's an excellent way of doing it. And keeping this kind of decision diary, this notes, kind of slows down the process as well. And you might get up the next day and add some more notes. Oh, no, I was thinking this yesterday.
Right. And you say a little prayer about it, too. And sometimes when you do that, the correct answer will come along from what you thought was different yesterday.
Yes. And so, so as not to get too bogged down, you don't use this on small decisions like, what am I going to eat for breakfast? But, in terms of the big decisions, first of all, taking your time, as you said, and then making notes so that you can at least more accurately recreate what you were thinking at the time. Yeah. Because your memory's probably going to mislead you.
Is this in the book, The Foolish Corner?
Actually, this is in there a bit, yes. It gets a brief mention.
And what about your newsletters that you're putting out?
In fact, the Hindsight Bias was the topic of a recent newsletter. And my newsletter comes out once a month on the first of the month, even April 1st, no fooling.
Okay.
The next one will be out.
Well, it was already out.
It was already out. Yeah, it is out now.
So how do they go to JOHN HOWE what is it? Substack? Substack.com/welcome. And you can sign up for the newsletter free of charge.
It's free. I'm not going to sell you anything.
Okay, and you're not selling anything with it?
Nope.
No, just sharing your thoughts and imagination.
That's right. And so it's available today, April 9th. Yes.
Thank you, JOHN HOWE, professor at university. I appreciate you visiting with us. And you've had both of your vaccines, both of your shots?
I have, indeed.
So have I, and it feels a little bit better knowing that that's circulating inside our system.
Just a little more relaxed.
Yeah, all right. But still, wear that mask. It's important. And if you haven't had your shot, please take it. That's important, too. All right, smile underneath the mask. We'll see you tomorrow. Something you'd like to hear or see, I'd love to hear from you. Drop me an email, pepperp@missouri.edu. Bye-bye.